when I start off, I kick my feet up, and no. not quite at all. My day, to be honest with you, is very, very varied. Most of my clients are remote. Most times I'm actually looking at data online. How many have used Google Analytics before? A few people? Oh, okay, quite a few, okay. So a lot of times I have clients that will vary from, some people will just say, hey, have at our Google account, we have strategy, please help us get to that strategy, go for it, Pierre, go. Get the thumbs up. Other clients, they want to hold your hand and really talk through everything. You're going to find that as a marketer, whether you do marketing independently or whether you're in a corporate environment, you're going to have you have a wide variety of people. Some people want the hand held, and some people will want it held privately. I was in Washington, D.C., for example, and I was on a contract with AARP, and one of the managers actually pulled me aside and wanted to understand how to use Twitter. And it's very closed door, you know, I was thinking, oh, okay, am I in trouble? Like, no, there was actually a closed door discussion on using Twitter. So my day does vary quite a bit in terms of whether I'm actually on site with a client, sitting down, door closed, explaining a detail, or other times I have clients will send something maybe through an email saying, hey Pierre, we are, we've noticed this in our traffic, but we're not sure what's going on here. Can you sit down and go through the data for us? And then and my job would be in terms of looking at not only the data within Google Analytics, but also understanding the marketing that's going on. As Joe mentioned to you earlier, he mentioned about AdWords. A lot of times clients will have different marketing strategies. Some clients will rely on AdWords. One of my largest clients that had 280,000 keywords. I had to sit down for 2.5 days to go through the data and sort through into 3 groups for that client for topics that would help them in terms of their what they should be focusing in terms of business. And that meant literally going back through not only the reports, also exporting the data into Excel, and then actually going through the website and then trying to tie back to the data and put some context to it. You'll find that a lot of times when people are looking for help, I'll say this a little bit too. A lot of times most people can't articulate every idea, and you have to be patient with that. A lot of times I talk to clients and they hinted at a couple of things like, oh, I want more traffic, but then when you really talk to them, it's not just more traffic, it may be more of some sort of marketing plan that would help with this much budget. But it's probably taking like maybe 3 or 4 questions and a lot of back and forth to get to that point. So you have to, again, I mentioned a little bit earlier about paying attention to people. Sometimes it's about paying attention to what the company objectives are and what they're trying to do. And then a lot of times I've done on-site work for clients. Sometimes clients have had events and I've actually sat in on those events as well too. On the board you can see a Twitter, we got a Twitter handle as well. I've had clients where small business trends, for example, they've done, their basic business is writing news on small businesses, but they've also done events also out live as well too. So I've gone to those events to sit in and understand what goes on, and that helps in terms of making suggestions when I come back and do a regular report for them. And half the time, the reports, I would say not quite half the time, but a quarter of the time sitting down and trying to help put some reports together for them that gives some sort of objective or some idea of what they should do next. But it varies. It really does vary. And you'll find in your careers as you talk to people, again, the challenge is going to be, some people are just going to throw you out to the wind, and you have to kind of be very, very proactive, very, very diligent in going through data, understanding what's going on. Other people are going to, we're going to ask for your hand, and you've got to get your hand out.
So my days recently have been pretty exciting actually, because I just started a new job. So I took over, I was the first marketing hire at a startup called Interior Define. So they design and build custom couches, custom sofas made to order. Pretty cool business model that. Getting a lot of traction right now in Chicago and around the country. So as kind of the first person to own marketing 100%, my first kind of need and want was to really understand which channels were performing the best. And so the main tool I went right to was Google Analytics, and really understood which channels were performing the best in terms of revenue. And so I wasn't as concerned with time on site or number of visits. I mean, at the end of the day, you're in a business to make money and to grow. So if you're not looking at revenue as a key performance indicator, a KPI, then you should do a double check and make sure you're understanding that you're making money. Otherwise, you're not going to be around very long. So after kind of skimming through some data, I found out that our reporting and our analytic tools actually weren't reporting accurately. So Google Analytics was telling us one thing, and our actual daily sales report was telling us something completely different. So Interior Define was still a very small company. There's only about 5 or 6 of us. And since no one was really owning digital marketing, the reporting wasn't really organized. There was broken tracking. And so I've been kind of cleaning up all those things. It's not the most fun thing in the world, but if you don't have clean data, which I'm sure Pierre can reiterate this, if you don't have very clean data and you have to flip through a bunch of spreadsheets, it makes your job and life much more hectic. And so really my first task has been really cleaning up all of our data and making sure we have the appropriate tracking codes in place. So when someone actually buys a sofa, we can attribute that sale to maybe our Facebook account or our AdWords account or a piece of content that we wrote, or maybe one of our blog partnerships that we've worked with in the past. So since we're very design-driven company, very aesthetic-driven, we've partnered with kind of big bloggers in that space to promote our brand as a partnership. And so in the hopes that their audience then becomes our audience as well and becomes our customers. So Google Analytics can track all this stuff, which is one of the great things about digital marketing is you can understand which channels are performing the best. So based on all the data that's come through, next week when I kind of have a bigger grasp and a better understanding of kind of where we're doing our best work and what channels we're doing, I can go to the CEO of the company and be like, hey, we're doing well with blog partnerships and maybe our product listings on Google, and we're not doing so well with social or some other social media accounts. We should double down on this, and we should stop doing this. And I have the data right there to back it up, and he can't tell me no because the numbers, the stats don't lie. And so this week has been a lot of organizing our data, making sure our Google Analytics is reporting the same as our actual sales, understanding where our traffic is coming from, where our sales are coming from. And it's been nerve-wracking, but it's been fun too. I've been dipping our toes into some email this week as well, so we're trying to boost revenue for this month, and we're trying to re-engage some customers that have shown some interest in our product. So one way we try to engage our customers is we send them free swatches of different fabrics or different textures of sofas for free, just to kind of keep them engaged. And so we know who's ordered swatches. And so I sent a promotional email to everyone who's ordered a swatch this month, giving them $100 off a sofa to kind of get them through the funnel, get them a little more incentive, a little more value. And that's a good example of kind of an email marketing strategy that we use to re-engage people who are already interested in our product, already have kind of a taste and a feel of our product. And this is a hope to kind of get them over the edge to actually convert and buy a sofa. So. That's my week so far. Week 1.
Great. So kind of, this is digital, so it's very technology savvy. And then you had mentioned earlier, certain content that gets implemented. There's, you're working with JavaScript. So explain, how technically savvy does one have to be in digital marketing? Because some just don't want to code, they don't want to know, they're never going to do it. So how technically savvy do you have to be in this role?
That is a very good question. On a scale of 1 to 10, the good news is not a 12. But the bad news is I think it's creeping just a little bit, just a smidge of it. But I think it's more about I'll say this from my end a little bit too, because we get clients where they're still trying to do things with their websites, and it leads into, you know, how do we tag, how do we implement tags. I think the challenge becomes, I'm going to say it's 5. I'm not sure what's the word I'm going to use, but I feel like it does go up a little bit. When I first started out with analytics, analytics has never been just, you know, slap the tags on the page and go on about it. There are a lot of times when we talk to clients, they feel like that's all they should be doing. But in the last few years, what's happened is that JavaScript, which is a programming language behind a lot of the analytics tags, there's developers now that have come up with different ideas of how to build out from the analytics tags. And on top of that, you have there's a measurement protocol, there's an API for that, there's a data, in fact, there's several APIs that are running perfect for Google. So the idea becomes, on the surface, I think as a marketer, you don't, if you're just trying to do something simple as AdWords, it could just be as simple as just adding a URL and just going on about your day. That's fine. Where I think it implements is the number of options that become available to you. I remember there's a really good article from Lunametrics. I was like, thumbs up, I really love this. Talk about what's called dark social, and the idea of conversations are taking place where you may not have a tag. And what the writer came up with was, I thought this was kind of brilliant. They used a measurement protocol to have an image source image be treated pretty much almost like an analytics tag, and so allow the if I remember correctly, allow the use of the email to be tagged for instances where an analytics tag would not quite function as well. That's very, very technical. And I think as a marketer, what you want to do is, I don't think you need to really get into understanding like what's a function, what's a method necessarily. I think what you want is to have an appreciation of it, an appreciation of what happens. I've never been in any situation where someone came in and actually said, okay, you know, have you heard about this latest change in analytics and that type of thing? I don't think anyone does that to vet. I think the challenges kind of come up along the way. And I think that you, as a marketer, might appreciate it enough to know when you might need to have somebody more technical. Or, given if you're on a project, you may have web developers who are dedicated to tags. I mean, I've seen analytics teams where you have some people who are dedicated to the KPIs and to the measurement, and some people who are very, very dedicated to tags, making sure they function, because it's not so much the technicality of it as much as the volume, given the size of a project, given the size of what goes into it. So I would say the short answer is, you know, be a little bit aware of what's going on in terms of technical around JavaScript, in terms of just of how a website is structured or how an app is structured these days. But don't feel so intimidated that you feel like if you're not a programmer that you can't make it in business. Because to be honest with you, one challenge I had when I first started out, because I did not start out with computer science in my background. I mentioned before engineering, that was my background, was mechanical engineering, did my MBA, and at that time I was learning about marketing, applying marketing skills and so forth. But in starting Zimana, my goal with Zimana was to try to understand enough site structures so that way when I talk to the client, I was able to give a coherent answer and say, okay, here's some things that will fit for your situation, here's some things that will not fit for your situation. And I think as a marketer, I think your goal should be some understanding, but just enough to be able to help guide a situation. Because a lot of times, a lot of the technical that goes into a web or an app, no matter what language is behind it, whether it's, I'm not so much 1805, but no matter if it's JavaScript, no matter if it's Python, Ruby on Rails, there's just so much, there's people that come up with frameworks on top of frameworks on top of frameworks, and it's just basically, it's basically like saying, hey, I'm going to pick this one particular drop of water as being the first drop of water in Lake Michigan. I mean, it's just so much that's out there that it's just hard to point to this one thing. It's just very, very arbitrary. So that's my spiel.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I would say if there's any kind of 101 kind of terminology, just to be able to be able to sit in a room and understand the jargon and kind of be able to hold the conversation on the technical side would be nice. And as you become more kind of versed in digital marketing, you'll pick up naturally to these kind of these words and how technology people talk about things. Also, I think it would behoove you to understand a bit more HTML. That's just like the very basic of frameworks for the World Wide Web. And if you're talking a lot about like tags and analytics, HTML will really help you out in that process. Don't go take like a Ruby on Rails or a JavaScript class. Don't go take like a dev bootcamp unless you want to be a developer, just because it takes a lot of time and effort to become a professional web developer. If you want to be a web marketer, just learn the basics. Just be able to have a conversation with somebody, know what you're talking about, and because that will give you the understanding to, when it does come time to bring in a technical person, to bring them in. And that's kind of your job as a digital marketer, is to be able to understand and kind of walk that tightrope between growing your business, having business goals, but also having technology goals as well. So a lot of times you're kind of that bridge between maybe like the sales team and the tech team, which a lot of times the marketing team was at SpotHub. Actually, one of the challenges at the new company that Interior Defined is our tech team. We actually outsource it. We don't have an in-house tech team. So SpotHub is essentially a technology. We're just bringing consumers to parking spaces, and we're just kind of a technology guy, similar to like an Uber or an Airbnb. It's just a technology platform. At Interior Defined, we have a product, and we're just selling it online. These guys don't really. We're not building anything new. We're not building a new technology. So because our technology is outsourced, there's a lot of kind of back and forth between myself and the tech team. It doesn't happen as quick because they're not sitting right next to me. Whereas at SpotHub, I can just go to the next room and tap on the window and be like, "Hey Larry, like fix this. There's a bug." And that's been one of my frustrations currently. Actually, is it takes like days for them to get back to me, and obviously that lengthens the process to kind of get things done. But again, just to kind of recap, just educate yourself as much as you can on understanding the basics of more technical resources out there, but don't go take a 10-week immersive dev course to understand.
I have a question, like what are the basics? Are the basics in SEO, Google Analytics?
Yep.
Like what, let's talk about basics, but I don't know what those basics are.
Yeah, so
I'm assuming these are the basics, but I'm not sure.
Exactly. All the kind of channels we've been discussing today are kind of the basic kind of digital marketing channels. And those would be like the places you can start. So there's a million resources out there to learn SEO, to learn AdWords, to learn email marketing. That doesn't take like a 10-week course, whereas like if you were to become a developer, it would. And those are kind of the basics. And all these channels are much less technical. You will be confronted with a few technical things here and there, but like Pierre said, those are the things that you'll pick up and you'll be intrigued about and you'll want to learn, and you can learn very easily as a digital marketer.
Would you name some of those resources that you
off the top of my head, I mean HubSpot is like, they're like the king of like inbound marketing, which is digital marketing essentially. Orbit Media is another one here in Chicago. Kissmetrics is a pretty analytical one. What about some
the ones I follow up also, if you're looking at SEO, there's a Search Engine Watch, SEW. Search Engine Journal, which is also pretty good. Moz is good. Moz is good. You're talking about
pay for that? Because I tried
Moz.
It's like
If you want to use their software, but if you just want to like read their blog or Webwork Friday, like that's full of really relevant, valuable information that you can educate yourself on SEO.
And I would say also the other, the thing I follow is, this may sound a little odd, I actually follow eMarketer. How many of you have ever heard of eMarketer before? Okay. I also do a lot of writing on analytics, and a lot of it, and I have editors that go bananas over eMarketer. Go figure. But they talk a lot about trends. Things that are happening within, I mentioned earlier about email, about the idea that people are opening your email through mobile. e-marketer, following that is a real excellent way of keeping up with what trends are going on. If you're interested in very basic